Hey everyone, it's Howie here with Kaylin doing our first official Q&A with us together. So we've had several questions sent in, and then we've also compiled just kind of some of the themes that we've discussed in our private conversations with clients. And the rhythm of this and our intention moving forward is to do one of these like once every 2 weeks. Right now we're thinking of uploading them on Monday, but we are going to solidify this structure and schedule more so as we keep doing it. So we're excited to add this element as another layer of support, especially for those of you doing the self-guided. So this is also a notice to you. If you send in questions, we'll create a thread in the app where you can post questions and we'll make sure to answer them in these bi-weeklies. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Kaylin?
No, I think that's perfect. We really encourage you to drop your questions, whether it's related to the medicine in particular, a journey you had, or just things that you're grappling with in your day-to-day life. All is welcome. And that thread is also going to be posted every Monday. So you can drop your questions, and then the following week we'll have the recording. So that's kind of the rhythm we're looking at creating. But again, as it gets, more solidified, we'll definitely give you a better schedule. So that's where we're at.
Exactly. And just one other thing before we get into the questions, for those of you that have been coming to the group calls, check the calendar, but right now we're doing those Wednesday evenings. We might add another one depending on how busy they get, but we'd love to see you guys there too. If you want live interaction and want to ask more personal questions or go a little bit deeper, that's more of like a group coaching format. That's been a lot of fun. So it's been awesome seeing you guys face to face and hearing about your experiences. Building this community is something that's a big intention for this year. So the more the merrier. So again, check the schedule for that, but we will be doing one this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So we would love to see you guys there. So I do have the questions up. So I'll start with the first one. How do I know if the session actually worked? It didn't feel dramatic, but something feels different. Maybe. I love this question. Do you want to start, Kaylin?
Yeah, I love this question. And this is probably one of the most asked questions, I will say. So this is such a good starting point. I think it is, it's so no nuanced because again, how do you know you specifically? How do you know it worked, right? And I think so many times the beautiful thing about this therapy isn't it isn't a one size fits all, excuse me. So how I know it's working may look a little different than how he knows it's working. But the beautiful thing I will say first is that even if you notice nothing, even if you didn't have a profound session, even if you didn't have this big aha or something, profound, the medicine is still working in the background. That's one of the main reasons people use ketamine as a pathway to healing because without a lot of conscious effort, without having to do a lot, we start to think differently and feel differently and move differently and just begin to relate differently. So my biggest thing is not even so much about what's happening within your sessions, but really looking at your day-to-day life, looking at how you're feeling every day. Maybe your mood shifts a little bit. Maybe you're sleeping a little bit better. Maybe you notice you've been really wanting to go to the gym and you made that choice. Maybe you reached out to call a loved one and you haven't done that in a long time. Those are all clear indications of the medicine beginning to really weave and work for you in the background. So my biggest thing is just continuing to drop in with yourself daily, whether it's keeping a journal or you have a timer on your phone where you just kind of check in and just notice what's there. How are you feeling? What's alive? That would be my invitation to start. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think all those are really good indicators. I think at a very basic level, especially in the beginning of this type of work, is like, did you just show up and take the medicine and do it? Like that's
Yes.
success by itself. Because you want to create a rhythm and a momentum of like, I'm showing up for myself, even if it isn't super obvious in the beginning. Of course, you can have experiences that are more obvious and it might seem like it's working better, but there's also things that can be really, really subtle with this medicine because in a weird way, and like this isn't getting scientific at all, but sometimes you can kind of forget how much you were struggling in this
Yes.
process. So it's like you feel better, but you don't have a reference point of how much you were struggling. It's almost like the memory got wiped in a way. So other things that can be helpful is noticing your relationship with your triggers. So, like someone cuts you off in traffic and you're noticing that you take a pause before just freaking out. Like, that's a really big cue in terms of the nervous system. That little pause between like a default reaction and your actual response, I think, is a pretty big cue. And then another one is asking for honest feedback from someone that you're in close contact with, like a partner or a family member or a close friend, because oftentimes they have their imprint of the version you were before and can notice more of those subtle changes. And oftentimes they'll even offer that up without you asking. But if you're not getting that feedback from them because maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing, you can ask them, like, honestly, have you noticed any changes? And that can be helpful too. If they say no, doesn't mean it's not working, but these are different cues that can also help. So I think
Mhm.
that's, you know, especially in the beginning, those are going to be the things focusing. As you get more deep into the work, success can change a little. Did I not abandon myself, no matter what the session presented? Could be a cue. Did I look forward into the future at the possibilities in my life? Maybe that could be a form of success. But keep it simple. Just showing up is so much success. It's already building so much trust within your system. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that one, or do you want to move on?
Last little piece I'll add to your point is also holding the awareness that each one of these sessions act as a building block. So the more that you continue to show up for yourself, the more that you trust yourself and you trust the medicine, the more accessible and easy it's going to be to see like the success from it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love that.
100%. All right, next one. Kind of similar. What if I didn't go deep enough? Did I mess it up somehow? So I think we basically just answered that. But the
Yeah.
depth of the session itself, you're not really in control of that. We can prepare perfectly and sometimes still have kind of a boring experience. One thing, though, that I'll say personally with these sessions that have made it more consistent in going deep, if that's something that's important to you, is really being inclusive of the present moment and inclusive of the body.
Yeah,
Ketamine is a
100%.
dissociative medicine. That it's connecting us with the dissociated state, which is kind of like an out of body type of deal. We're consciously doing it. So because it's kind of out of body, if we make it more inclusive, like body, I'm not trying to run away from you. Present moment, I'm not trying to run away from you. I want to merge more deeply into what's currently available. For whatever reason, that seems to create some containment around the expansion. So rather than like I'm just leaving the body, it's like I'm expanding into the body and it's holding the expansion. For whatever reason, by setting the intentions that way, for example, help me stay with what I want to run from. That intention for me has led to very expansive experiences that my body can actually hold. And then help me become more intimate with what is another intention that I really like to use. So you could play with those, but usually when we're not going deep, it's because our nervous system will not allow for that level of expansion because it's afraid that we're using the expansion to run away, not to
Yeah.
actually become more intimate.
I love that. And I want to piggyback on that because how do you know what's deep enough, right? Again, that's coming from the mind and an attachment and expectation on what you believe your session needs to look like, right? So there's still like that element of control underneath, right? Where we have to realize that when we're working with these medicines, when we're working with the body, that they're incredibly wise and incredibly intuitive. And sometimes, like Howie's talking about, it's a nervous system thing, it's a safety thing, it's maybe there's a different medicine in the moment that you wouldn't get if you had this deep, profound mystical experience. Maybe the medicine was learning how to stay in nothingness, in uncomfortability, in a trigger, right? How do you relate or react when things don't go your way, right? You wanted this and you got this, and that's also a gift. So I think too, a paradigm that I kind of like to always go into my sessions with is that what if I went into this thinking that all of this was perfect and on purpose, right? It wasn't that it wasn't deep enough or the dose wasn't strong enough or whatever it is that you're putting, in your mind, but that this is perfect and then what's here for me and how do I get more intimate and more curious about what is here? That's just like another layer to what you guys shared, I think. But
100%. And sometimes the sessions that are like super boring or agitating can be the most revealing because it really brings to your awareness that pattern of like, what do I do when life's not exciting? Or what do I
Yep.
do when life isn't matching up with my preference? That shows your character. We can all be happy when life's going perfectly according to our plan. But how do you show up when it doesn't? So I think
Yes.
your point, Kaylin, on it not going the way you want it to go. It's like that reveals what's real
Hmm.
because we all can seem like Buddha when life is perfectly matched with our vision board. But who are
Yes.
you when you get the polar opposite of it? So if you want to develop resiliency and unconditionality and strength and courage, those are cultivated through not getting what you want. And so if you understand that all of it's important, all of it's on purpose, like Kaylin said, oh, I'm developing resiliency right now. I'm developing patience. I'm developing unconditionality through not getting what I want. Awesome. I don't have to like it. I don't like when they don't go the way I want them to go, but it is what it is. So once you can get on board with that, the more you're going to enjoy your life because you realize eventually you don't have to control that.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Sometimes I feel worse the day after. Is that normal or am I doing something wrong? You want to start?
Yeah. 100% normal. So the thing about this medicine is it has the ability to either create quick relief or to amplify. And why we get which one, we have absolutely no idea, right? We really don't, and we can't control it. But so many times when people really start working with this medicine and working with the body and working with trauma, there has to be pathways for it to emote from the body and to express essentially. So many times, if you think, for 10 years, you haven't allowed yourself to cry, to be angry, right? To grieve, your body almost takes the medicine or your sessions or even like the windows after as those channels, as those pathways to start releasing. So it's not uncommon to have, maybe you've heard of it called like a healing crisis, during your session or the day after. And it's not that you're doing something wrong, it's that you're resourced and ready and safe enough for all this to finally begin to process. So absolutely, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing beautifully, in my
Yeah, and
opinion.
it's like sometimes a lot of us we haven't been honoring our system's need to rest and like just carve out time for ourselves, and that's why we end up sick and burnout and injured and in physical pain. It's our body crying for that space to just safely recharge its batteries. So sometimes when you do this work, it's like, well, you're stepping into actually honoring the ebb and flow of life, the days where you're productive externally, and then the days where you're integrating and resting internally. That's the natural rhythm of life. Sure, you might have seasons that are more outward and might have seasons that are more inward. But if you look at the bigger arc of what's going on, there's a balance between the ebb and flow, the outward and the inward. So if you've been very resistant to the inward and you start working with this, it might invite you into take a nap. Be with
Yeah.
yourself, take a bath, go for a slow walk, stretch. It's building a relationship at that baseline level that's focused on self-care so you can actually recharge your batteries and then actually show up in an external way. But we can get really confused like, why don't I have the energy to do anything? Because you're not honoring the rest part. And even if you're doing nothing, you're fighting it so much internally that your batteries aren't charging, even though you're just sitting on the couch. So it's about
I will
making
say,
it intentional. Go ahead.
yeah, and I will say too, just I don't know why this is coming, but if someone needs to hear this, resting is still an action.
Yeah.
And sometimes it seems so, paradoxical, but sometimes you do have to really slow down in order to speed up. And in those moments of the slowing down, of going within, of taking a pause, it is about changing relationship. It's about expanding capacity. It's about learning how to hold yourself differently with life. And, it's so funny because I think most of us, myself included, when I got into this work, resist that space. And sometimes that season in that space can be more fruitful and more productive than just pushing through and trying to hustle and trying to like, kind of repress your way through some of the things that the body is just asking to be felt and to be witnessed in. So, yeah, I love this question.
And most of us, when we're expecting that we're high energy all the time or high output, on a day where we wake up and we feel exhausted, for example, we can instantly go into, oh, the day isn't set up the way I want it to be. So our choices become unconscious. They're not really intentional choices. So if it's like a Netflix and chill, that's like a default reaction to life not going the way you want versus, oh, I woke up low energy. I'm going to choose to rest. I'm going to choose to do self-care today. It's my choice. I have structure. I'm still participating to Kaylin's point. It's still an action, but is it conscious or unconscious?
Yeah.
Is it you actually reading what's happening and saying, oh, this is how I act corresponding to the way my energy is? So if we don't have a plan in place for that, then we're going to default to just floating adrift through our life. We have no structure. We're lost at sea. So even if you're in a low capacity day or season of your life, still creating structure in there, but structure that's more oriented around self-care and
Yeah.
rest and rejuvenation as opposed to just, well, I'm not productive, so I'm just gonna give up.
Yeah.
That's the part that gets people worrying about you. Like, oh God, they're giving up on life. It's not they're intentionally taking care of themselves, which is the opposite side of that. It's they have no structure in their life. They're taking care of themselves and doing nothing doesn't seem that way. So again, they are all actions. It's just are they conscious or are they unconscious reactions to life not giving us what we want?
Mm.
Okay, next one. How do I integrate something that didn't come up as a clear insight? It was more like a feeling. You want to start?
Yeah, I love this question. This is kind of reminding me of something that came up in the group. And we're talking about how sometimes when you begin working with this medicine, it's almost like learning to speak a different language, right? Because sometimes it isn't a clear, thought or direction to go in, but simply like a feeling or an essence of something that's lingering. And what I would really encourage you to do is a couple different things, and you can play with which one feels the most aligned for you. But whether it's maybe sitting in a short meditation and really trying to reconnect and cultivate that frequency or that essence within before going about your day or doing an activity, that can be a way that you start like weaving and bringing it in. If you can really name that feeling, maybe it was joy, maybe it was euphoria, maybe, it's pleasure, whatever it is, looking at different, activities, relationships, experiences that you can engage in that recreate and activate that expression in your life. That's a really great way to start teaching the identity, the nervous system, right? And the psyche that, like, hey, it's safe to start being this, right? And the more you start calling it out, you start normalizing it in the body, right? So the body will start seeking for experiences to feel and recreate that. But first, it will take a little bit of like conscious effort and really trying to tap back in and cultivate it. But then it starts to become like second nature. So those are just some ways that I would start playing with energy and feeling. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I think, and I don't want to get too complicated here, but the way the mind interprets sensation in the body all has to do on a reference point of the past. So, for example, if you feel something uncomfortable in your body, your mind might quickly come in and label it anxiety because the
Mm,
reference point it has is something that maybe really was a survival moment. So it's like, I got to get ahead of this thing to protect the body from feeling this way based on real trauma or neglect or an emergency, whatever it may be. But the mind kind of starts to play a game of telephone between your awareness and the body. So it's just looking at anything that might feel uncomfortable and labeling it a specific word, which we would call an emotion. But if you don't have the label of anxiety and you actually just got into the felt sense, like maybe it feels uncomfortable, but is it anxiety? You don't actually know that because the only thing your mind has to work with is the past around something that felt kind of similar. So if you can actually understand that sensation in the body is the thing that's felt first, then it's interpreted by the mind, you can kind of start surrendering the meaning making that the mind gives it and get in direct contact with the source itself. So you're no longer playing that game of telephone. So, as Kaylin mentioned, that just comes from dropping into the body, not needing to prematurely assign meaning to it.
yeah.
And if you can do that, that energy no longer has resistance against it and it can move a lot easier through your system. So I like to think of emotion or sensations in the body really only being two things. It's either contractive, which feels uncomfortable, or it's expansive, which feels more liberating. But it's like, oh, it's contraction. I don't have to label it as anger, grief, anxiety, all these different words to describe contraction. I can just say it's contraction. That's okay. Contraction, you're free to move. It's expansion, you're free to move. The meaning will come later, right, as you keep living your life. But we don't have to pre-assign meaning to keep ourselves safe. If you sit with like anxiety, really breathe into it, and you're not labeling it as a negative thing, you'll be amazed with how much it changes just from that. It's like, oh, I thought it was anxiety, but it's actually more like my aliveness or my electricity. So if you play with it that way and get more textural with it instead of like good or bad, I find that to be really helpful too. And it's great that you're already connecting with feeling because that's a big part of this work is getting reconnected with the actual sensation in the body. It means your awareness is actually getting back to the source itself. You're no longer living in the clouds. Alrighty. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Caitlin?
No, I think that's beautiful. And just I guess the last thought I would say would just be and this is for any like any constriction in the body, any sensation, emotion, it's information, right? It's you always hear it's energy in motion, but it's true. So what does it need? It needs a safe space to be witnessed and to be felt. So at the very bare minimum, like just taking time to drop in with your body already is a huge step and really helping to cultivate that relationship, I think. So I think that's perfect.
Exactly. And your body is in the present moment, right? Like your body can't live in the past or the future. It's your anchor point to reality. So whenever you bring your awareness into your body, you're bringing your awareness into the present moment. And the mind can relax its meaning making. And this is how you create new neural pathways. You give your body new experiences where it's not recreating the same experience of the past because of the mind interpreting it that way as dangerous. So this is how you develop a new relationship with life and your body can start trusting it again. All right. Next one. Why do I feel resistant before a session even when I know it helps? So first thing that comes up for that, I think resistance, first of all, isn't a bad thing. Sometimes our nervous system when we're going into a period of expansion can get a little freaked out because it feels like the unknown. And even if it hates the way things have been, it's still familiar. So anything that's unfamiliar can just kind of feel scary or dangerous, especially if you've lived a tough life where all the unknown resulted in bad situations for yourself. So it's like it's totally fine. It's very innocent. I think if you know it works already and you have resistance, usually that can be enough momentum to just get yourself to do it. But remember, you don't have to torture yourself in this process. You don't have to go faster than your system allows for. This is about
Mm,
honoring the system, no longer treating your body like a bag of meat that you're just dragging around. So if the body's feeling a little resistant, just tapping in like we're safe to do this. We don't have to go any faster than you're okay with. Then the body, can gently stretch its comfort zone. But we're not just trying to blast through the nervous system and disrespect it.
I love that. I want to highlight you really honoring the whoever submitted this question. I was gonna just say your name, but I don't know your name. Really honoring where your body and system is at. And it's okay if you feel resistant. And I love what Howie was saying. And, what's coming up for me is that the resistance is intelligence, right? There's an aspect of your identity, of your subconscious that felt like it had to keep you safe, right? So knowing that your resistance is literally that voice in you, that aspect of you that wants nothing more than to protect you. And if you can approach your resistance that way and get more intimate and more curious about cultivating a relationship or just getting more curious about why it's there, many times it's literally just because it wants to keep you safe. And like Howie said, it's unfamiliar, it's unknown, it's unpracticed to the identity, to the body. So it automatically labels that as dangerous, right? And I think the more that you can support that part of you before going into your sessions, the safer and deeper you probably will be able to drop in. So whether it's taking a few minutes to do a little breath work, maybe it's putting hands on your body and literally talking to that part of yourself. I hear you. Thank you for being here, and we're safe, right? Finding ways that you can cultivate that inner sense of safety, so that you're just well resourced as you go in. I think that would really help you, but also just holding that awareness that the resistance is there on purpose. And it's literally just the part of you that wants to keep you safe, that wants to keep you the same. And I think when you can relate to it that way, it's so much easier to work with the resistance and then instead of feeling like you're fighting against it, if that makes sense.
And you said something that really resonated, and it's the thanking it. Like literally, thank you for holding the fort down all this time.
Yeah.
Like you've been working overtime over here. But the way we usually treat resistance is we treat it with disrespect
Yeah, we're
versus
mad at it.
honor.
Why are you here?
Yeah, where
It's,
exactly. It's like, what do you
it's
mean, why am I
Saturday.
here? Where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I've been gone. I see that you've been overworked. Thank you so much for protecting things, but I'm here now. It's like, all right, cool. Well, now I can relax maybe even just 1% more.
Yeah,
But it's a relationship, right? Like if you've abandoned a relationship, you're not going to regain trust overnight. I think we
exactly.
all can understand that. It doesn't have to take forever either, but it takes continuing to show up with that reverence and respect for the aspects of you that have been going at this alone so that they actually can sense your genuine intention to repair the relationship. But that's consistency. It's not through one great breakthrough. It's continuing to show up with that respect.
Yeah.
Is it okay that part of me just wants relief and not some big spiritual breakthrough?
Yes. The most simple answer would be yes. Because again, this isn't a one size fits all experience, right? So what I'm coming for and maybe what I'm desiring to cultivate in my sessions is going to look so different than Howie or you or anyone else who's listening to the recording. And that's beautiful, right? We're all here to have a unique individual experience with the medicine. And if right now the thing that's most alive for you and is most pulling is just wanting to feel better and wanting to have relief, that's perfect. It's literally perfect.
Exactly. And if you've been suffering a long time, which I know most of us that come to this work have been, of course you want relief. It's like you've been drowning underwater, like you need to get your head above water so you can breathe. Relief is usually the first step of creating
Yeah.
enough space to actually do the deeper work. But you can't even do that if you don't have hope or feel better
Yeah.
first. So I
I,
think I view relief as the window where you create enough space to get reincorporated into your life, to remember that the sun's still shining, but to also have enough space to see the patterns, to see maybe how you've been running from your life, to see the things that have been suppressed. But if you don't have that spaciousness, you can't see the way things are wired. So relief
yeah.
creates the spaciousness. So that's why we always honor relief. But I do think there's an important distinction of like, if relief becomes the end goal for the rest of your life, you can't control that. Relief, by definition, is temporary. It's
Yeah.
the exhale after holding your breath underwater for a long time. But once you're breathing normally again, can you invite yourself back underwater consciously, choosing to do it this time?
Mm,
So,
I love that. I want to piggyback off that for just a
yeah,
second. I will
please.
say what Howie's sharing is bringing up this idea of relief kind of being the doorway. And I think you've seen this many times for your clients, as have I. And when we're in a state of survival, what we have access to is really the bare minimum, right? We're just trying to get by. We're just trying to get through the day. We just want to feel better. But then what happens once you're there, right? There's another door that starts opening many times. There's other pathways that start unfolding. And I see a natural progression that after people start to get relief, well, then it starts to be about relationship. relationship to yourself, relationship to your aliveness, relationship to reality. And all of those things are just a byproduct of starting to feel better. So if that's where you're at, honor where you're at while holding the awareness that another doorway may open. And if it does, you'll have the option and choice to go through it if you want. So,
And you don't have to undercut your wave of relief, is what I like to call it. Because if you've been struggling for decades, which a lot of people have, you might have a relief window that's pretty long. So, like, just
yeah.
bask in the sunlight, like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it is a phase, right? Like, it's not that every day becomes rainbows and unicorns for the rest of your life. It's a rebalancing act. You've been holding your breath for so long. We need to get your breath into the proper inhale, exhale rhythm again. That's really what relief's about. Because once you're balanced out, then you can re enter the game from that balance point, which allows you a clean slate in how you want to relate to your life moving forward. So when we hear of the ideas of being born again and things like that, it's this idea of you have a fresh opportunity to relate to the ups and downs of being human. That's what the rewiring really is. It's not about the static state of always feeling good, which we all know isn't what the human experience really is.
Really quick, I feel called to share this. I just want
Please.
to share an imagery with you guys who are watching this. So think about a heartbeat monitor, right? There's ups and there's downs, there's peaks and there valleys. And if you're constantly at the top, it's considered illness. And if you're at the bottom, then you're dead, right? So what Howie's talking about is not so much having to be up here in constant like euphoria or relief, but learning how to expand capacity so that you're resourced enough for the highs and the lows. And you know what I mean? So I just think sometimes we could create like an image to something like it's like, oh, well, of course that makes sense. Right. But when it's our day-to-day life, we're like, well, why am I not as happy as I was yesterday? Something must be wrong. I can't be sad. It's Saturday. Right. So it's like learning how to like ebb and flow with your aliveness in a different way. I think that's one of the best gifts this medicine can offer all of us at any point on the journey. We're still
Exactly.
learning here.
And to that point, it's like when we're suffering, like to the
It's
point like we don't even want
temporary.
to be here, we're hovering at that bottom point for too long. So we are out of
Mhm.
balance. That's also not natural, right? We're not getting the ebb and flow. We're in constant ebb. So this pulls us into a period where we can balance it out to get back into the proper rhythm. And then from there, now you can participate from the proper rhythm. But again, we're not selling some fantasy thing that you're always going to feel good. It's about how do you show up on days where you don't feel good. That's more practical. And if you start honoring that ebb and flow, life becomes juicy. Not because you're happy all the time, but because you're living out a really amazing story. All right, next one. We only have a few minutes here, so maybe we can do one, maybe two more. Um, this one I think is pretty relevant. What if I have a good session and then fall back into old patterns? Does that mean it didn't stick? You want to start with that one, Kaylin?
Yeah, I love this. Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that it didn't stick. It doesn't mean that you're going backwards. I think that what you're speaking to is a very normal part of healing, right? It's not a linear process where it's like, okay, I'm done with this. Now I'm going up, 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 right? It's more cyclical. It's more of a spiral. And sometimes you're going to notice, and I was just sitting in this the other day. Sometimes the same themes, the same patterns, right? The same wounds essentially are going to resurface and reveal themselves again. And it's not because you didn't heal them or you're doing something wrong. It's that as you expand and as you evolve consciously, spiritually, right? On an identity level, on a nervous system level, you're going to be approached with different perspectives, right? Different lenses that you can really experience and heal the same thing. It's almost like approaching it from a different level of consciousness, not to get too woo here, right? But it's giving you an experience to really heal and really see what this certain wound trigger, um, whatever it is that you're trying to pattern, right, that you're noticing, it's giving you like the full picture so you can heal it on every level and every aspect and every perspective. That's true holistic healing, right? So you'll see this sometimes where maybe you feel like you healed an issue with your mother, but then you notice that in your romantic relationships, the same kind of pattern and wounding shows back up. Well, wait a minute, I thought I already healed this. No, it's given you an opportunity to heal it on a deeper, more integrated level, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And I think another way to think about it, it's like in this process, you're evolving and growing. And so you kind of are becoming a new person in a way. So it's like, okay, it might seem like the same pattern, but you have a new set of eyes looking at it. So like the
Yes.
way it, gets triggered in you is going to be different. So it might seem very similar, but it's usually revealing something deeper when you're doing this type of work, like something
Like an
that's,
onion.
yeah, exactly. And I still have patterns that trigger the crap out of me that I feel like I've been dealing with for years. But there's like a point that I'm at now, it's like seeing enough of patterns continuing to play out to where I give myself a lot of grace being a human. It's like, of course, I mean, how many years did you live under stress and duress and all these things? Like, it makes sense that there's layers to this. There's a lot of stuff that's been stuffed down. I just don't really turn that into a problem. I just turn it into like it's part of being human. It's part of the journey. It's not a moral failure. And of course, taking accountability where I can. Like if I keep repeating the same thing over and over, like, okay, like let's maybe look at this, right? But there's also that level of like life's working in mysterious ways.
Mhm.
Can you just continue to show up, give yourself grace in the process? It's not a pass fail in that regard.
One last thought on this. I think something else to hold awareness to is that healing isn't something that's ever fixed, right? There's people enter into the healing journey like, oh, I'm going to fix my self-worth or I'm going to fix my money problems or whatever it is, right? But really, healing isn't something that's fixed or linear. There's always going to be deeper levels to your consciousness, aliveness, like body that you have access to and that you can step into. And truthfully, some themes and some wounds and some patterns are going to be things that play out through your whole entire life. So you can really get to experience the whole totality. For me, and patience is one, right? So the universe is constantly pulling in these opportunities where I get to practice, okay, being patient, right? And learning what it means to let go of control. And I think, again, it pulls back in that theme of relationship, right? It's not that I have to fix that I'm impatient, but I get to learn how I relate to it differently and noticing where that, drive for, impatience pops up and where I move and behave and react from that place. And like, that's the healing, right? Not that I have to get rid of it, but how do I relate to it and move differently because of it, if that makes sense?
You nailed it. And I actually think that is what, like, when we think of healing, like, what we're really looking for is participation in our life, regardless of our current situation.
Yeah,
Rather than waiting for conditions to change to move, we say, I'm willing to move from here at whatever level's honest for my system.
yeah,
Then healing just becomes part of the journey, not something that you have to like look at retroactively, like, oh, I need to be all healed up before I get in the game. It's like, no, you're tuning an instrument. You strum and you listen. You have to play the string though to actually get feedback. So a lot of us in healing are like, I have to heal my trauma, I have to heal, release all these suppressed emotions before I can move. It's like, no, you move and all that stuff will come up along the way. You don't have to
yes,
wait around. And yeah, you'll have seasons that are more introspective when you're low capacity, for sure. But that doesn't mean you're not still choosing what you're doing. So that's what we mean by participation. As soon as you say, you know what, I'm good enough as I am to live my life. Once you get there, you don't have to think about it as healing. You just think of it as feedback. I'm moving forward, things pop up on the trail. So what? I deal with them then. So it's more of a forward way of looking at healing. And I think it's helpful so you don't get lost in feeling like you have to heal 9 billion things before you get back into your life.
yes. You get on a healing loop, literally, that's what happens.
Well, I have to heal 25 generations down. It's like, all right, well, I'll be over here golfing.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
did you want to do one more or should we close out?
we could maybe do one more and then shut it down.
All right, I like this one. How much of this process is the ketamine and how much is actually me?
Ooh, I would have a follow-up. Like, what? I wonder what they mean by that.
I think
How do you interpret that?
I interpret it as like how much of it's just the ketamine like doing the work versus like me doing the work. You
Hmm,
know,
okay,
like if I weren't taking ketamine, like is it ketamine fixing the nervous system, the
got it, got it.
brain? So I'll answer just very briefly on how I see it. In the relief phase in particular, I do think there's a much heavier weight towards the ketamine because when you're low capacity and you're struggling, we need something that's easy to commit to help us break out of that. So if you just take the ketamine and do the sound therapy, and those are the only commitments, like I'm just going to show up twice a week and do that, it's much heavier handed on the ketamine to help pull you out of the storm. Once you're in the wave of relief, that's where I would say more of the onus is on you because you have to decide how you're going to relate to your life moving forward. Ketamine's
Yeah,
not going to make that decision for you. It's not going to just make it easy for you at that point either. It's going to reveal what's there so you can see the wiring, you can see the patterning, but you still have to choose how you're going to integrate and how you're going to bring it into your life. So I think the amount shifts. In the beginning, very ketamine forward. Once you're feeling better, it's more on you.
yeah. I think everything you said is perfect. And I am probably one of the worst people to ask because I will scream integration from the rooftops, right? I think it's such a missing piece in this field and why I love our team so much because we do really believe in the power of integration. And I think it's one of those things, everything Howie said, yes. I think at the beginning, it really works as that catalyst. It really is that thing that makes you feel better quickly. But then it's kind of leaves you in this space as you become more resourced, as you cultivate more relationship with the medicine, where it's going to begin to open up these doorways. It's going to begin to show you possibilities, right? It's creating the awareness, the insight, the aha. But essentially, you have to have the choice to move differently. It's one thing to have, healing live in the mind, and it's a different to have it fully embodied in the system. And that really comes down to who you're choosing to be, the choices that you're making day in and day out. And they can seem very small, minute, but they compound over time, and that's real lasting change. Right. So you'll hear us talk about having these neuroplastic windows, even more important to focus on integration then, because that's when you're literally feeding your brain almost like these energetic votes of this is who I see myself as. This is what I want to experience. This is how I want to feel. This is how I want to spend my day. And when you have the awareness, which I believe the medicine really helps to cultivate, then you move into the realm of choice, which is 100% on you through integration. And that's where you meet your power. Right. So to me, integration has to be a part of this work for you to really get the most out of it. And not just the most, but that's what really makes it become lasting change and transformation. Not quick relief, not just a cool experience you had on medicine, but actually changing who you be in the world. That's integration. Mic drop.
Exactly.
I'm done.
No, I couldn't agree more. And that's the issue you see with ketamine work and medicine work in
So
general,
yeah, most medicine.
is it's just not even talked about. Like, how do you
Mhm.
actually land the plane? Like, what are we even doing here? Like, what's the point of getting relief if we're not going to do something with that window of opportunity? So it's great though that we have these medicines because I hear it all the time and I've been there personally. It's like the breath work, the meditation, the therapy, the whatever is not giving me any relief. It's just more homework. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, I just literally need to see that the sun's still shining because this frickin' sucks. And ketamine is a wonderful tool to open that up, to open the storm up. But from there, if we don't have a bigger picture of what's going on, a lot of us can start to chase that. And as soon as you start chasing relief, again, it's now saying like, it's right if I feel good all the time and it's wrong if I feel any other way. That's not how life works. So, relief as a phase, absolutely, we honor that and it's super important. But long term, chasing relief, you're going to plateau, just like with
Yeah.
anything else. So I love that question because I think we have a good balance of honoring what the medicine does short term, but also taking responsibility for our lives long term. And if you do your part with the medicine, it will open up more doors, like Kaylin said. There's a lot this medicine can teach you when it's not just from the standpoint of relief.
Yeah,
Once you get in the game and you're like, I'm not using this to escape, I'm using this to be more here, it's
it's
crazy
fun.
what can start happening.
Starts to get real fun.
Starts to get real fun. But yeah, so everyone send in your questions again. We didn't get to all of them. We did have kind of a lot, but this is something we're going to keep doing. And again, please come to the group calls. We'd love to see you guys. And
Please.
Kaylin, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
And
thank
we'll have
you.
this posted.
All right. Goodbye.
See ya.